Hello everyone, welcoming. I'm Professor Rodriguez, and today we're going to be talking about how to create a virtual machine inside the Google Cloud platform, as well as how to install a LAMP framework in there. LAMP stands for Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. For those of you in my web development class, you know that we've been using a lot of those already. So let's switch over here the scene. So for those of you who are my students, and I'll post this as well, we have a tutorial here that I modified. The tutorial comes from the Google Cloud community, but I had to modify it to meet our needs. So a lot of it has changed with the latest technology. Now, if you are my student, then we know we have $50 of free credits, right? That you can use, and it's valid for 6 months. So you have until January 20 something of 2022 to use up that $50 of credits. Okay, just make sure you check your email and you register. Um, with your credits. So let's get started here. Now, the way that I want to show you this, okay, cloud.google.com. I want to show you this not just for your projects right now. I want to show you this so in the future you can use it as well for your own needs. Okay, so we're gonna go to cloud.google.com and I'm going to switch into my email from the school. I'm going to click on console. That's how you get to the page where you need to do everything. It's by clicking console all the way at the top right of the screen. Once we click on console, we're going to see our projects right here and information about what we've been using. To get to the project, we're going to click on this navigation menu on the console. We're going to go down where it says Compute Engine, and we're going to choose VM instances. On this menu, though, see that there are many other products that you could explore. For this project, we just need the compute engine. So I'm going to click on VM instances. For you, it's probably going to show whether you want to activate or enable this product. Click enable and wait like 30 seconds or so for it to start. I already had a machine here. I tried to record this video before, like 3 times, and there was a problem each time. So I'm deleting my machine here. So the latest one, the latest issue was that my program for recording this video had two input channels, so I was echoing and it was bad. Um, anyway, so once we're in this page, we're gonna click on create an instance, and that will allow us to set up a machine. Now, notice right now, if I just leave defaults, it's estimating that I'm gonna pay $25 per month, more or less, right? However, I want to point out to you that there is a free tier on Google. Oops, make sure we click on Google. Cloud Google free tier, and usually it's the first one, the first link, right? So for all of their products, they have what we call a free tier, which they won't charge you if you stay within those constraints. So what we're creating is a compute engine. So I'm gonna click on there. And there we go. These are the requirements. So if you want a free VM machine every month, you can do that. Because for the compute engine, you can have one non-parentable F1 micro VM instance per month, in as long as it's in one of the following uh, regions. 30 gigabytes of HDD, 5 gigabytes of monthly snapshot storage, 1 gigabyte of network address. And it's not per instance, actually, it's per time. So as long as you can use the amount of time that exists in the month, right? It doesn't matter if it's one instance or more than one instance. As long as the total time is below the total amount of the month, you're fine. So what do I mean by that? If I create two instances and I leave one instance running 12 hours during the day, and then the other 12 hours I leave the other instance running, I switch between them, that still counts as free, okay? Because you're not passing that time limit. But if you leave two running all the time, then you're gonna get charged for that second one for the full price. All right. But anyway, so we're gonna keep F1 micro, and we'll use US East 1 because we're in the East Coast. But you can pick whichever one you prefer. So the instance name, I'll call it CIS275 VM. You can call it whatever you want. It's kind of a variable name. When you're coding the future, it identifies which machine this is. This CIS275 VM. I'm gonna change to US East 1, and I'll leave the zone US East 1B. What this is doing is this is setting up a physical machine somewhere. Google has the resources, and this one happens to be in South Carolina. So we're getting a little space on Google's one of Google's machines in South Carolina. So we have to change the series into N1 because that's where we'll find the F1 micro. Notice this will have a machine with 614 megabytes of memory available to us. Notice here that this is free for this month for 744 hours. That means there's an estimated, even so, even without the free hours, the estimate of this machine would be $4.88. All right. Now, just so you're aware, with 614 megabytes of memory, you can host websites that don't have high traffic without a problem. Okay, what do I mean by that? Websites that have maybe less than 1,000 clicks per month, or per week. Um, it should be okay here. If there is a need for more, then you would up to the next level, right? The more memory you have, the more traffic you can support. But just be careful, the price goes up quite a bit. Kind of doubles with each of these levels. All right, so just keep an eye out on that. So then we can leave those unchecked, the confidential service and container. Then we have to choose our boot disk. Basically, what operating system do we want to use? We'll use Ubuntu. Ubuntu is nice for web development. And we'll choose the latest one, 20.04 LTS. We want LTS because, it's the lighter version. For the boot disk type, we'll leave as a balanced persistent disk. And remember, we allowed 30 gigabytes, so we'll type 30 and click OK. So we have that allocated, and we want to allow HTTP and HTTPS over here. We want to expand management, security, disks, network, and so tenancy. And in these, we want to change the networking options. For the networking options, we're going to click on network interfaces. There's a little pencil. You can click on that to edit. This sets up the IP addresses of the machine, internal and external. External, for people to access. So if they need to go to the website, to your website, that's what you're going to use. Notice both of them are ephemeral, which means automatically this IP address will be set up. The problem with the external IP addresses being ephemeral is that it will change every time you turn off the machine. So what we want to do is we want to change this. We want to create our own IP address. This will create a new static IP address. It doesn't change, and this is a little bit better. So you can type whatever name you want here, just so you can remember which one it is. For me, I put CIS 275 IP or external. I actually created both, and you can choose premium. Premium's a little bit more expensive. Standard creates one that matches your region. So I chose standard and made sure that it's US East 2. Notice though, if you are gonna use this, I'll use CIS 275 external. If I am going to use this, the price goes up a little bit, right? Remember it was $4, now it's uh, $6. So it seems like the cost will be maybe $2 per month to have this. Um, I mean, it's not a high cost, however, it probably is even less to be honest, in the end, but it does cost to have it static. All right. So we're going to click on create and we'll wait. A lot of this is waiting. All right. A lot of what you have to do is waiting. Now, while we're waiting, I have all these steps listed here on the tutorial, right? Now we're in step 3. We want to deploy the lamp stack. So I'm gonna leave this open over here just to save some time instead of having you waiting for me to type out these commands. I'm gonna copy and paste the commands. For those of you who are my students, remember you had to take Linux CIS 106, right? And that was the reason. Well, that was not the reason, but one of the main reasons is if anybody wants to deploy a virtual machine or a web server, a lot of times it's going to be through this type of platform. All right. So it's important to know Linux for those things. Now, you might not be comfortable with Linux, and that's totally fine. For now, you can copy and paste the code, or you can type it out so you can practice. Right. So but let's see here. I wanted to hide this. Hide. There you go. That's what I needed. So here we have the information about the VM, US East 1B, internal IP, external IP, and then we have SSH. So we're going to click SSH here, and we're going to do some stuff to our VM. So it's a Linux Ubuntu VM. It's connecting. The SSH allows you to go into the terminal. All right. So it's still important to know the terminal. All right. So we're going to go over here. And the first thing is, oops, I cut by mistake. Notice I'm copying and I'm coming to the virtual machine and I am pasting it. Oh, just kidding. I didn't copy. I copied, but then I overwrote it. There you go. We're pasting it. We'll press enter and it's going to update the machine. Then we're going to create what we call a swap file. There's a few steps to allocate enough memory. What the swap file, and notice I'm just copying one of these commands at a time. Technically, you can copy all of them at once. It works. Um, but basically, we're creating a swap file which will help with memory management. Remember, we only really have 650, even 16 uh, 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 megabytes, and that's not a lot. So we're creating a swap file that's about 1 gigabyte, which will allow to be a little faster if we need to swap stuff in the RAM when we run out of RAM. So notice upon entering this last command, it opened what we call the new nano. The nano is the text, one of the text editors in the Linux system. And you want to make sure you use the arrows on your keyboard to go up and down the lines. You want to go down to the third line and you want to paste that /swap file swap default 00. Once you're done with that, you're going to press Control O and then enter to save the file, and then Control X to exit the editor. All right, so press both of those and then you're out of there. So this just sets up the system so we can start doing stuff. So the first thing we're gonna do is install Apache and PHP. Notice that's gonna ask you whether you want to continue. Why it says that message is because sometimes there are other required packages in order to make everything really work. So by typing yes, you're saying yes, I confirm that I would like more packages to be installed. So again, it takes a couple of minutes a lot of times. Or seconds rather. Sometimes it could be a minute. So the next thing is we want to make sure this is installed, okay? And all we have to do is we have to go into our external IP address. So you can copy it and you have to go to the browser, type http colon forward slash and then paste your IP address, all right? And press enter and notice it should say it works. If it says it works, that means that you're good to go. So hopefully it worked for you. If it didn't work for you, then that might mean you forgot to set one of the settings on your VM machine. Maybe you forgot to click on the allow HTTP access, or maybe you misspelled one of the words in the commands that we created. So, double check that everything is correct. If worst case scenario, if you can't figure out, you can't get it to work, just delete your VM machine. You can click on these three dots, click on delete, and then create a new one. All right, no problem. So the next thing, I'm gonna go back to my shell. And there I'm gonna type this command or copy and paste this command. What this is doing is this creates a file called hey.php inside my var www html folder. Var www HTML is where all your website files will go by default. Okay, so over here, the 35.211.234.58, your external IP address represents that folder. So inside that folder, var www.html, there is a file called index.php, which is what's generating this code, right? Which is displaying this page. So if I need to access anything else in that folder, I'll put a forward slash and I'll put the name of the file, like hey.php, and note it says hi world because we just created it using that command. All right. Again, if you get an error there, if you can't see the page, you might have to go back and re-watch. So we have Linux, we have Apache, and we have PHP. We're just missing M for MySQL. So we're going to install MySQL now. Press yes. We are here, sudo apt get install MySQL Server PHP 7.4. We'll wait a second. This is the one that takes the longest to do, so we can wait right there. Yeah, it gets stuck here. Renaming removed key buffer. That's where it really takes a while. So, um, I hope that in the future, you're not just gonna use this for your project. I'm hoping that in the future, maybe you use this to your advantage to maybe place a portfolio website, a resume website, something like that to, showcase your work. And right now we're accessing the website through the IP address. But if you go to domains.google.com or domains.google, I think you can buy the domain for $12 per year. And Google also offers a free free privacy, so people wouldn't know that you purchased the domain. All right, so you can definitely take advantage of that and create a website for yourself, that um, you can showcase your work in the future. A little bit longer. Now, if you didn't make the swap file, which was happening to me, my VM would crash in this point. It would install MySQL because it was way too much for MySQL to handle. All right, there we go. Now we have it installed. You know it's done because you're gonna see your username in green. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're going to paste this sudo MySQL secure installation, and the first thing that it asks is whether you want to validate the password. Now, the reality of the fact is that you should validate passwords for a real website that you're gonna be having, because you don't want people to come in with their weak passwords, right? Because it's not safe. So if you press yes, it's gonna ask whether you want a weak password policy, medium, or strong. And what changes is the number of characters, the number of special characters, uppercase, lowercase, digits, things like that. However, with that being said, do what I say, don't do what I do. Uh, but I'm gonna press no. Why? Because I want to use a very weak password for this. I don't want to be warned about it because it's just for demonstration purposes. For those of you in my class that are going to do this for your project, it's okay. You don't have to validate it now. But again, just for the project, okay? For the real thing, the real deal, you want to validate that. So, a new password. Notice when you type the new password, notice my cursor is not moving, but I typed something in there. Okay, so type it again. Again, the cursor is not going to move. It's not stuck. It's working. It's just that it's hiding your password from other people. All right, so nothing moves. But it matched, right? Because it went through. If it didn't match, it would ask you to press it again. Then ask whether you want to remove anonymous users. We can say yes. Then ask whether you want to allow the root to connect remotely. We can say disallow. Uh, Yeah, let's say disallow. We don't need the root. We're gonna create another user, which is safer. Another user that can connect remotely, but the root would have to be in person at that machine, basically, right? If otherwise, if you're trying to access from somewhere else, it would not allow you. So it depends on your needs, really, whether you want to allow it or not. And then remove test database. Yeah, we don't need that. And then reload privilege tables. We're gonna say yes. What this does is it makes sure that all of these settings go directly right now. So there we go. We have it. MySQL is created. Now we can create. We can also install phpMyAdmin so that we can you know um, use our browser to access the database rather than doing this stuff in the shell. So Apache, ideally, you should learn more about the shell and feel comfortable with the shell eventually. However, I know with the knowledge you have right now, you might not be confident about it, or it might be too much of a trouble. So what happened here, I selected Apache 2, and then it asked whether I want to keep a common database configuration. I pressed yes. You just have to press enter on your keyboard, and now it's asking for the password for the system. So I'm putting a password in, and so if you want to log in as the administrator. All right, now this administrator doesn't have full rights. Okay, they can see the databases, but they don't have full rights like um the root user. So we still have to create somebody that has all the rights. So the next thing we're gonna do is a copy. So sudo cp, that's copying. Dash r means recursively, so it's copy that folder, phpMyAdmin folder, and all of the resources inside of that folder, all the other folders as well, and place it in var www.html. So now we have a phpMyAdmin folder inside the HTML folder. Now, when we do this, because it's phpMyAdmin, we have to restart Apache 2. So sudo service Apache 2 restart. That will restart our server, basically. So now, with that, I can type my IP address / phpMyAdmin, and notice we have it here. But again, if I enter, you can log in through phpMyAdmin. Um, with that login, and then you can enter the password that you typed in that box, and it's going to give you access to the database. But again, look, you can't even create tables in this view because you don't have those rights. Okay, so oops, I closed that. Let's go back to the shell. So we want to make sure we have somebody that can do that. So the next thing is we're going to do a sudo mysql-u root-p. That means we want to log in as the root of MySQL into MySQL, and we enter the password that you provided earlier for MySQL, and then we can type some SQL commands. Now here, notice it's in MySQL, so that means that's what I'm using now. I'm no longer using the Linux shell. I'm really using MySQL. So the first command, and you have to edit whatever I put your username. You want to put your actual username that you want to use. For my students, remember we created a credentials file that had your username and some password, right? I also told you to use for class the CIS 275 password. Why? Because I don't want to see your real password when you send me the files, right? So what this is doing is this creating a user in the database that is going to use their native password. So this is the native password. And then what we're going to do is that we're going to provide to that user, again, whatever you say your username, you're going to put the username you want to have and press enter. And that will give a privilege to this user to use everything uh to use everything in this. So basically they act as the root user. Then you type exit to exit the MySQL shell. You'll see now you're back to that green prompt instead. Now if I go back to 35 up, up, up 35.211.234, and then I type phpMyAdmin. I'm still logged in as phpMyAdmin. I'm gonna sign out and I'm gonna log in as J Rodriguez, and I'll put the password that I was using. And notice now I have full access to phpMyAdmin and can create my databases. All right. So for this video, that's all. Now you're all set up. All right. Now you have everything set up for um developing websites in the virtual machine. Okay. Um so next, what we're gonna do in the next video is that I'm gonna teach you how to then transfer files between your computer and the virtual environment. Okay, so I'll see you soon.